And welcome to the Falconcast. We have a fun show planned for you today. My man Joe Spano is going to join me. We'll talk a little college basketball. We'll hit a little bit of everything. And, probably get to some dumb stuff as well. But I hope everyone is having a great afternoon. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope it was better than mine was. We're going to get to that in a second. And, we're going to talk about something a little serious for a couple of minutes. And then we're going to get to the fun stuff. And this time we'll be doing 5 o'clock. Jerry Bow and I will be starting noon to 2 next Monday. And it will be Wrinkled Money. Basically replace this past. I may just keep doing the Monday afternoon one. I haven't decided yet. I'm not in any position to be making decisions right now. But then we'll be doing Friday. Thursday will still be AJ. But there will be one more podcast in there somewhere because I want to continue to have people like Joe on and, Greg Frank and people like that. So I'll be figuring that out. But we've got a lot of cool stuff going on. First, I got to tell you about the Phoenix on Westheimer. Now's the time to get over there. It is the best soccer bar in Houston. You always get Premier League. You got Champions League going on. Great food, great staff. And I've never had a bad meal over there. And they always have specials. So please check that out. It's on Westheimer. Real easy to find. And give those guys an opportunity to entertain you. He's a great guy. Welcome in, Chuck. Welcome in, Flip. So I'm going to start the show off today with not a good story. I'm going to be honest with you, and but it's something that I know other people are dealing with a lot worse. But if you saw the show on Thursday, a lot of people thought I was. Hey, Raj, what's up, brother? A lot of people thought I was drunk, which I had 3 drinks while I was there, but something was really off. And as it turned out, I've been making a lot of dumb decisions lately, and one of them was taking a piece of an edible from somebody that I didn't know where it came from. And it turns out it was laced with some really bad shit. And by the end of the show, I couldn't walk, I couldn't move. Thankfully, the people at the Maple Leaf, and it had nothing to do with the Maple Leaf, that it did not happen there. Let me make that clear. They were great. They were nice enough to get me to a couch, and then my good friend Nate came and got me, and called my friend Dana, and they got me home. But I fell down about 4 times, and I mean, just my body wasn't working. And welcome in Alan, welcome in B. Hannon, welcome in Flea, and Spirit, all you guys. But when I got home, I couldn't remember my dog's name, stuff like that. And everybody thought I was better, so they left, and I got up to go to bed and fell down. My body just quit working pretty hard. And wound up, when I did wake up, just calling an ambulance and going to the emergency room. And I will say this deep. And as it turned green, and found out that there was stuff in my body that I would never put in my body. And but the worst part was, I've been battling probably longer than I think. And, talking to the doctor, it leads me to that because my mind isn't where it should be. And this weekend, I mean, I have my moments where I'm fine. I'm remembering stuff from Rick and Morty season 3, episode 4. And then I'm having moments where I go out for a cigarette and I'm looking for my lighter and it's in my damn hand. And I've really started to learn a lot about concussions because, I know I had one a couple of weeks ago, but this is probably the same concussion. And there's little things that make it really hard to focus at times. And, I never paid any attention to it when athletes would start doing stuff late in life. You go, what the hell? And you find out later they've got CTE or something like that. Basically, didn't realize how bad what I'm dealing with is. So, I'm going to be fine. And I hope you guys are patient with me. I might say something stupid and actually not be me. Which I did on Thursday's podcast. I mean, it was a fun podcast, and unfortunately, I accidentally deleted it, so it's off of everything. It's one of the things I did when I, wasn't thinking. And, now I feel normal. And I got to say, the drinking on top of stuff like that doesn't help. And so I've cut way back. Well, I mean, I've had 2 days. I'm not going to be going out for a while. Doctor would like me to stay home, and I'm fortunate that I can do my work from here, except when Kira's being a butt. Notice I got her name right. And but it is scary. I'm not gonna lie to you guys and sit here and say, "Oh man, I'll be fine." The doctors told me, man, my brain may never work quite the same. Buchanan mentions Junior Seau struggled with that. Yeah, and obviously I didn't take all the hits like he did in football, but I've had at least 27 concussions in my life, and like I said, I think 3 in the last month, and it may be the same one. I don't know. But it's something that I'm going to be dealing with, and and I hate to start the show off on a serious note because we do have some fun stuff. UH is #1, baby. Hey, and we'll get to that in a second. But no, it's just I've always been honest with you guys, and I've always thought of all of you as friends, even the ones who hated me. And so I wanted to be honest now, and. There's little stuff like forgetting people's names, which I'm never good at, but I mean, people I've known for a long time. And I'm like, hey, I'm kind of embarrassed to ask you this, but it's kind of like when you put somebody in your phone and you forget to put their name on it. And then you got to go back and ask them their name again. And so, and Spirit asks, is the Louisiana poke attorney off? Well, I don't know yet. I feel better today. I hope to feel better tomorrow. And the only problem is that my state basically went to pay for my hospital stay, and it was a scary experience as well because I actually did stop breathing for about a minute, and found that out later, and I know it was the drugs or the concussions, but boy, I saw some really cool shit, and if that's the afterlife, hey guys. I'll see you in the next life. But sorry, guys. But it's just something I got to deal with, and I will. And it is just a little scary because the brain is the last. I mean, this is all I have left is my mind. And now, if I'm going to lose that, then what do you do? I mean, it's and our health is the most important thing. And I hope that that anybody who's out there dealing with some shit, that you can get yourself healthy. Please do it. Take care of yourself, because, and this is one where it's hard to take care of myself other than just stay home and not go out and do anything, because the concussions make me prone to bad decisions and stuff that I would never do and stuff that I would never say. And like I said, there was nothing wrong with the pod. There were a couple things where I was a little over animated, I guess, but I feel like that wasn't me. And I'm gonna try to get back to being me today. So anyway, I didn't mean to bring everybody down with this on the first segment, but I just felt you should know. And if you notice me doing stupid shit on here, don't be afraid to say something. Because the one thing I've kind of found out is if I can focus on what I'm doing wrong, I can sort of get things back on track and focus on the right things. And it's so stupid. I remember every play from that UH Baylor game, every single play. I remember every single shift from the Leafs beating the Avalanche Saturday night. But then there were other stuff that happened that day that I have no recollection of whatsoever. So it's just going to be a process. And welcome in, Joey B. And hopefully I'll get past it, and if I can get past it, and if I can't, then I'll do as many podcasts as I can before my fucking brain melts. And see, I think it was the aliens. I've talked about aliens and friend them. I think one of them has melted my brain. So that's what it is. Welcome in, Joe.
Well, we took the serious and we made it lighthearted at the end. So I guess from here on out, we're going to have some fun. And I'm glad to see you're out the other side, so to speak, and on the road to recovery. That's always good news.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if I'm on the road to recovery. I just know that I'm lucid and I'm trying not to drink very much, and make fun of myself because that's what I always do. And guys, feel free to make fun of me. All right, if I'm coming off as an idiot, I don't want to use that as an excuse. I want to have fun with it, however much I can. So
with all this
right.
falling down, we might have to get your suit of armor to walk around in. Be safer.
Oh no, you know what I need to do? I need to get one of those like little kid helmets. That way when I fall, I'll be like thunk. But yeah, that's and the problem is, whenever I fall, if my head doesn't hit something, which it usually does, your neck snaps, right? And it's like the Dale Earnhardt thing, and it scrambles shit up there. And there's a lot of shit in there that I'd be okay not remembering. Like there's a couple wives, we lose those memories. That's fine. But, I do have some good memories. Most of them involving hot tubs and beautiful women, but that's about it. But the other thing too, in the doctor, I said I don't want to belabor this too much, but the doctor was telling me, he was asking me, do you still take joy out of the things you love? And I was thinking about it, and he wants to get a GoFundMe for a rascal scooter. Yeah, you know what? I'm a little. I love that. No, but I'm legitimately thinking about getting like a wire line on my stairs that I can latch my belt to, so that I don't fall on the stairs. So short bus works, yeah. But the reality is, see, now I just forgot where my train of thought was. See, that's one of the things. But yeah, never mind. See, that's why I was making a point, and then I jump on and read to everybody. And this is what happens when you have alien fried brain. So, but yeah, what was I talking about? I was about to make a point. I don't remember. See, okay, so this is the kind of shit that you're gonna have to deal with, guys. I'm sorry. But anyway. But I was talking about the things I could remember and couldn't remember, and
right. And then you were talking about getting kind of like almost like a zip line for the stairs, so that way, hey, because you were talking about the fact that falling is bad enough, but the stairs, between what it does to the rest of your body and what it could do to your head, you really got to worry about that. So you want to take some precautions there. You kind of diving into that and going from there.
And my landlord's back, so I'm going to talk to him about getting that installed, but. Yeah, the main thing is, but we were talking about poker earlier, and I just, that was my bankroll, went to the fucking hospital for something that, I would have never, I never do that, man. I have the edibles I take, I get specifically from Colorado, and they're all wrapped, and I don't have to worry about them. But one of the policemen told me this is really common right now, that they're spiking edibles. I'm like, well, fuck that. I'm never taking another edible from somebody I don't know. The problem is I barely remember doing it. It was the next day before I kind of started being able to trace my shit back. So,
yeah.
Big hand, do you still love things in life? The things I take joy out of. And welcome in Miss D Bounds. Dana was really helpful this weekend, man. She kept an eye on me, and she and her son Ethan got me home Thursday night. Lamont says it's called old. Yeah, it's old on top else, but. Yeah, no, I haven't been taking joy out of things, like even poker. And, Jerry and I get to talking, and all of a sudden I'm all excited about it again. And, they tell me that's a common thing. And then that leads to depression because you're not enjoying things anymore. So, I spent today after I got ready for the podcast watching Rick and Morty, making myself laugh, and just chilling. And it's, that's the kind of stuff I have to get back to that. And I don't, I have fun doing the podcasts, and that's why I may just add a bunch of them for no reason, because I like coming in here and talking to everybody, and we've always talked about life, going back to me and AJ, and even me and Philly Greg. I mean, life was always a part of the shows, and it's a part of life, and it's not a good one right now, but you know what? Fuck it. It's been such a bad year, and I keep thinking it can't get any worse. It can't get any worse.
Oh, sure, sure.
Yeah. So now I'm like, well, the only thing that's going to make it worse is, and the truth is, and I'll be honest about this, if I'd taken any more of that edible, I'm probably not here today. And,
wow.
because it was a lot that and I just took a tiny piece, man, because that's what I always do the first time I try a new edible, because I want to make sure I don't overdo it. And I always take, just for back pain and shit like that. I don't take enough to get high. It's just, enough to relax and things. So I'm very fortunate that that's all I did. And I did reach out to the person who gave it to me, and it turns out he also wound up with the sack thing in the hospital. And but I mean, the hospital was great. The guys at the Maple Leaf were fantastic. I can't thank them enough. I can't thank Nate enough. I can't thank Dana enough, and Ethan. And they kept an eye on me this weekend. And as I went through it, and Dana kind of saw me go through both phases, where what's my dog's name, and versus I'm remembering shit from 20 years ago when we used to do karaoke together over on the other side of town and stuff like that. And I did have like a little bit Saturday night where I was actually really good, and I probably could have gone and done something, but right now I'm just trying to be careful. But anyway, I do remember every fucking shot from that UH game on Saturday. Let's get to some college basketball, brother. UH and Baylor, and Bear brother, what I missed, you being in the hospital, drank too much. You're gonna have to go back and listen. And I mean,
yeah, we're not doing this again.
Yeah,
Show will be over.
I can't repeat the whole thing. You're gonna have to go back and listen from the beginning. UH is number one. I don't know if they're the best team in the country, but they have the best resume. And one of the things that drives me nuts, and we'll get to kind of the game a little, and Baylor, I have some thoughts on Baylor too. That's a really good basketball team, but they've got 8 one-possession losses now. What does that tell you? And what that tells you is fuck them in the tournament, man, because you're going to have one-possession games, and that gets in your head, just like whatever the alien thing is in my head. But one thing that drove me nuts, so ESPN was doing College Game Day, and of course they're doing it at stores, right, for the UConn game. Mm-hmm. And this drives me nuts. And you're an East Coaster, so I don't want to have to lump you into all this, but you can answer. You can answer in for me. Fucking Jay Billis and all guys. I know they're right, and all they were talking about is, UConn's team. They're coming off a loss, by the way. Let's mention that. They're off a loss. They're the best team. They've separated themselves from Purdue, and like no mention of UH during, except the girl who was on the panel, who I think played at UConn. I don't know who she is. She's actually pretty good. She came but said, well, what about Houston? Have you seen them play defense? And of course, Jay Billis is just completely dismissive because he's a fucking ACC Big East guy. And it really doesn't matter he was dismissive of Purdue too, which was kind of pissing me off because I know Purdue's a tournament failure team, and they had a UConn this week too. So congratulations to anyone from Purdue who might be listening. But I'm kind of curious your thoughts, because it just seems like nobody's taking them seriously. And you look at their resume, unless the Big 12 is actually a fraud, which I don't think it is. Unless the Big 12
it's not.
Fraud, they have far the best resume in all of college basketball right now. Better than UConn.
We talked about we talked about this before, early in the college basketball season. We kind of alluded to the fact that unlike in years past when Houston was part of the American, they scheduled, couple of semi-tough non-conference games, but they gave themselves a much lighter non-conference schedule because of the meat grinder that is the Big 12. Big 12 is the best basketball conference in America, bar none, no question. Yeah, there's a couple of doormats at the bottom, but top to bottom, this is the deepest and best conference in America. They're at the top of it, and they play the best defense in the country and are a top 20 offense. This is right now the best team in America. And hey, you know what? Ignore them. Everybody. You ignore them at your own risk because they're tournament tested, they're proven. They've got a tremendous head coach. They're going to learn from some losses late in the tournament. They bring that defense, which is going to help them win those one-possession games. Offensively, I think they're improved over the recent past where they were prone to scoring droughts. I don't think they're nearly as prone to those droughts as they are in years past. I think Houston's incredibly dangerous. You mentioned Baylor, and you talked about all those one-score losses. It's because they don't play elite defense. They're an elite offensive team, but Baylor's a team that struggles to get big stops in big spots, and that will show as they advance through the tournament. I think that's going to be an issue. UConn's a tremendous team on both ends of the floor, but I don't think they're better than Houston. And you can't tell me the Big East is tougher than the Big 12. And neither of those teams played a tough non-conference schedule. Houston's was actually better than UConn's. So Houston, to me, is the best team in the country. UConn is probably next. Purdue, I make Purdue a begrudging third. Yeah, and it's not just because of the recent past tournament failures. Because I think they're a better team this year than those teams the last couple of years. I think their defense is much better. Their big problem is their stud can be styled out of the ballgame. When your star is Zach Edey, first of all, you have to get him the ball as opposed to him having the ball in his hands all the time. Second of all, when you have that old-fashioned post-up center, in today's brand of basketball, a smart head coach can scheme him out of the game. Not that he's going to be physically off the floor, but you can scheme to limit his effectiveness, not on the offensive end, but you can make him a defensive liability, which makes it a challenge for Purdue. So I think for those reasons, Purdue may face some of the troubles in the tournament that they've faced the last couple of years, just because a player like Edey is going to struggle on the defensive end in the tournament. And as a result, Purdue may struggle to get those key stops and key spots, and they may get upended somewhere.
Yeah, a couple things. I mean, I think I do think with Purdue, what we saw in the tournament last year, he got triple teamed and they get upset. And I think he's better this year, though, and I think they found better ways to use him. And UConn's got two terrific big men. So I think when we get to the tournament, just because I think UH has the best resume right now, I don't know that I would take them over either of those teams, just from an inside matchup. Sampson would find a way to scheme against Edey. And the other thing I'll say, they are still prone to those scoring droughts, and we saw it in the second half on Saturday. The difference is, and he just didn't have a great second half, but Jamal Shedd's a guy who, all right, the other team goes on an 8-0 run, Jamal Shedd takes the ball and scores. It's that simple. Now, he was like 0 for 9 before that shot at the buzzer, which, oh, man, I wish the game had ended that way. That was so beautiful, and, I mean, it was just a tick late. And if you didn't see the game, Baylor has a guy who hadn't scored the whole game, gets a tying basket and is fouled. Misses the free throw. UH gets the rebound, gets it out to Shedd. He rushes up the court, a three from about 3/4. And unfortunately, the buzzer, I mean, it was right past the buzzer. And so it didn't count, but UH dominated overtime. And, that's a hell of a week to beat the number 6 team and the number 11 team on the road. And one of the things I've noticed about the road games in these big conferences is the home teams almost always are getting the foul advantage. And I mean, almost every game I watch like that now. And I think that makes a difference as to why we're seeing such home and road splits. But one other thing I'll say about the Cougars is they've gotten better on the road since they lost those three. Well, the Kansas game, they just got their ass kicked. That's the only game they played all year where you look at it and go, wow. I mean, Iowa State, they missed free throws at the end, which is another flaw. They could have won that game. They should have won TCU. TCU got a basket at the end there that never should have happened. Kansas carved them up pretty good. But that's the thing. I think these road games, it's your losses that tell you as much about teams as wins. And I'm pretty excited about this team. And I'm not ready to yet. I am a fan of this particular team, but there's also, and I played this game with Philly Greg last week, where we went through and looked at all the top 25 teams and who we thought might be able to win. And I think the sneaky good team that may not be atop their conference right now that could be there. Now Tennessee, I'm not taking. So if you haven't seen the top 5 are Purdue, UConn, Tennessee, Marquette. You could have Tennessee. That's a team that I know can't win in the tournament because Rick Barnes has never done it. Marquette, any thoughts on Marquette?
There's a team that's balanced. They're good offensively. They're elite defensively. They're well coached. I think that's definitely a team that can get there. I think they're one, obviously. And to circle back to Houston, I do think they are a team that can get there. You mentioned they're still a little prone to those offensive droughts. I think you'd agree with me, not nearly as much as in recent past, and having the go-to guy, and they've had go-to guys before, but having the guy that is just like, hey, we need a bucket, go get us a bucket now and stop this 8-0 run. That's a classic example, and we saw it Saturday. That's something they have that maybe they haven't had even when they've had star players. So I definitely think Houston's one that can get there. I like Marquette. I think they can get there. They don't have a ton of size, but they have enough. You mentioned UConn. 2 bigs, athletes on the perimeter, well coached. Again, of the top 5, the one that worries me the most is Purdue, just because of how they're built and how they're constructed and how basketball in 2024 can scheme a traditional old school pivot player to the point where, yes, he gets his on offense, but he gives up even more on defense, and it puts you in a precarious position. So for me, of that top 5, I think Purdue is probably the hardest pressed to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I'll go with Tennessee on that one because I still think that – I think they're phony, and I think they're overrated. And, one more thing about UH that I'll throw in there. It's not just Jamal Shedd. When he's on the floor, especially, and I don't know why, on road games especially, Juwan Roberts can get his own shot inside. And he's another guy that can stop a bad scoring drought. And there's times when I'm like, yeah, I just want Shedd or Roberts shooting the ball and get Damian Dunn off the damn court. But they've got the 2 guys who can do it. And I think Emmanuel Sharp is turning into a really good third option scorer who's only going to get better. And I think moving forward, that's going to be pretty cool. A couple other teams I wanted to get to. I think Kansas can still win it. I'm worried about their depth. Iowa State, I think, is very similar to Houston, just not as good. But if they get the right draw, North Carolina's number 9. I think they're good enough. Duke, those guys. The team I'm really intrigued by is number 11 Auburn because they can score. And, people overlook them a little bit, but that is a really, really good basketball team. And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they can score, they can defend, and they are 10 deep of elite talent.
Yeah.
They can come at you in waves. And, this may end up being a factor in the tournament where they've got 10, 11 guys. They're a team, somebody gets in foul trouble, and it matters a lot less for the Auburn Tigers than it does for just about any of these elite programs in college basketball, because the guy behind the starter is almost as good as the starter. It's just a very deep, extremely balanced team that can score the ball. They defend well as well. There's not a lot of flaws there. Deep, talented, well coached. Played a tough conference schedule. They played a decent non-conference schedule, so they're battle-tested. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't sleep on Auburn. They can be they're an incredibly dangerous team. Iowa State, I think in many ways, like years past, and again, they surprised me with what they've done this year and how close to the top of the Big 12 they are. Elite defensively, no question, like they are every year. I think even better than most years. Offensively, I think you would agree they are a step or two behind every one of the teams we've talked about thus far, and they will have more trouble scoring in big spots against elite defenses than any of the other teams we've discussed thus far. And I think that could be their undoing unless they get the right draw in the tournament.
All right, a couple more teams to get through real quick, and then I have to tell you about something going on with the H Association at the University of Houston. But Creighton at 12, not a fan. Same thing with Illinois at 13. Alabama at 14, I think is capable of a run, but they've been a little disappointing to me. And then Baylor's at 15. We've already talked about them. I think where my possibilities end is Kentucky at 16. I still think Kentucky's got it in them to make a run. They're not as good as they've been in the past, but they've got some really good players. And I think that's the one team that if you're going to take somebody pretty far down, I like Kentucky.
I got to agree with you because what we haven't seen from Kentucky is them healthy all year. They almost never put out their entire starting lineup or their entire 8-9 deep rotation. Every time you watch a Kentucky game, somebody's out. So we really don't know how good they are. Again, here's another team that's definitely elite offensively. They have not defended well or consistently well this year. So if they can get healthy and have their top 8 or 9 ready for the tournament at 100%, get a few games under them with that entire core group intact. Yeah, I could see them making a run. Alabama, I think the game has to go right for them.
Right.
They can run you out of the gym. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's a team in the country that from a pure points per possession standpoint can keep up with Alabama. You know, I mean, it comes out of the basket, goes in the basket. The problem is they're very vulnerable defensively. So, you know, when you start getting deeper in the tournament,
they give 117 to Kentucky on Saturday.
Yeah. So when you start getting elite teams in the tournament, you got to get stops in key spots. They don't get stops. You know, they you know, their basketball games, they're scoring in NBA numbers. You know, they're having college basketball games at 40 minutes. The two teams are putting up 200 points. So that's my concern there. Again, I think Kentucky can go deep. I'm not so sure about Alabama, but they'll certainly be fun to watch in each and every game they play right up until they get knocked out because it's a track meet, man.
Well, it's interesting to me because, you know, those are teams that they get a couple early wins and then the bad matchups get upset or something. That's where I could see them making a run, right? Because that's part of the tournament. It's like you're supposed to play Arizona. Well, they're out. And you get, you know, some 12 seed that upset them that doesn't really belong there. So anyway, I want to welcome in Pelly Rat. I want to welcome in Poor Marine. Thanks to all you guys for listening today. We'll get some other sport next. But right now, I have to tell you about a really cool thing that's going on with the H Association. As you guys know, I'm a little bit of a UH guy. My landlord is part of UH royalty. My favorite bar is a place for UH former track athletes and at PJ's. And I've spent my entire life. The reason I went to UH because when I was a child, my dad was covering Guy Lewis's Cougars, and I would be in the locker room, and names nobody will remember, like Pooh Welch, were the players. And one of the guys I'm going to tell you about in a minute, Otis Birdsong. And, you know, I grew up wanting to be a Cougar, and I think I've told this story. I turned down an opportunity for a scholarship elsewhere at a smaller place because I wanted to I wanted to go to UH, and I worked my way through school there, and I love it. I've been a UH fan ever since. Since I could barely breathe. Now, and then I had all those years at the Chronicle where I couldn't be a fan, right? Because I had to be neutral on everything. Oh, everybody else there who worked with the UT were all big UT fans, but that's okay. I was the boss. So anyway, they've got a really cool thing coming up: the 46th annual H Association Barbecue. Some great guests. Willie Fritz, you might have heard of him, new football coach. Chris Pesman, who's done an amazing job as athletic director. They've got some Cougar legends there like Otis Birdsong, Bo Burris, David Klingler, and the tickets are very reasonable, guys. One ticket is $25. You can get 4 for $85. This is going to be Saturday, March 9th from 11:30 to 2 at the Stadium Club at TDECU. And it is also going to be prior to the tip-off of a game you might like, Houston versus Kansas. And there's the sponsorships that you can buy. You can get 6 tickets for a $250 sponsorship, a $500 sponsorship for 10, and a $750 sponsorship for 14. And proceeds go to senior rings for student athletes. All of this goes to student athletes. So if you want to help out the University of Houston and the athletes, and not just, look, the football players are great. The basketball players are amazing, but, there's a lot of great sports there. And you can help support them by going to this. And look, I know a lot of people with the H Association that I consider really good friends, and they're all good people. So this is coming up. Dwight Davis has been added as a speaker. They got some auction items for you. There's 2 fishing trips and a hunting trip. And it all goes to student athletes. And once again, Saturday, March 9, before the Kansas game, 11:50 to 2 p.m. at the stadium, TDECU Stadium. And please, guys, even if you just buy one ticket for $25, go to this thing, see all the great Cougars that are going to be there, meet some of the people in the H Association, and barbecue. Hoops, Barbecue, and Drinks is how they're touting it. But 46th annual one. So anyway, just happy to be able to let the people know about that. All right, have you been following any the NFL offseason moves?
Yeah.
What are you most interested in right now?
Well, I got to be honest. What am I most interested
What happens?
in?
Are you going to tell me? Oh, what happens to Saquon Barkley?
No.
Okay.
I know what I know that I know what that's going to be. He's not coming back to the New York Giants, and it's funny, talking about your Houston Texans. I read an article somewhere where they said that he would be a good fit there, and he would be at the right price. Again, Barkley is not coming back to the Giants. He wants money that he just can't justify. Coming out of college, I thought Saquon Barkley was going to be a generational running back. He's not. He's a good back.
Yeah.
Very good back. But he's not a generational back. There are, 8-10 running backs in the league better than Saquon Barkley. He's got plenty of mileage on him now. He's had a few injuries. He's not that same player that he was when he broke in as a rookie. So if I'm the Giants, I'm absolutely not paying him. I'm really there. There's no way. Let somebody else pay him. It'll be somebody else's problem. But it was interesting. I saw, an article that said the Texans would be a very good fit for him. I don't see them spending that kind of money on a running back that's now getting into his mid-20s and would be on his second contract. I don't see it happening. I don't think it's a prudent decision, and I don't think it's consistent with what that organization is going to do. Now, you asked me what I'm most interested in. I got to be honest with you. It's looking at the top of this draft and looking at how these quarterbacks are going to shake out. I think that's very interesting because you talked about it for some time. And, everybody says Drake May, Caleb Williams, and they're sleeping on Jaden Daniels. And that would be a mistake. And I don't know how far he's going to drop, but if you need a quarterback and you're somewhere in the vicinity of the top 5 or 6, and you can get up to 3 and he's there, I think it would be the prudent thing to do to go out and get him, because I really do believe that he is this generation's Lamar Jackson. The ability to be a difference maker with his legs and his arm, and the surprising amount of polish that he has as a passer. Yes, there's going to need to be work to be done, but day one, with his very, very unique skill set, he can be an impact player at the quarterback position. And I think the potential is incredibly high for that player to be extremely, extremely special, Fred. So that's really what's interesting me right now.
Yeah, I put on Jaden Daniels months ago when your Giants were really
Yes, you did.
And it said this needs to be your quarterback. But getting back to the running backs first, I've seen a lot of national media pushing Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry to the Texans, and it's like, there's a time when these guys wear out, and I think Henry especially. I just don't see him. I don't think it's the right move. It'd be like adding Dalvin Cook last year. It's like, they're not what they were. Their names. I mean, Saquon might be able to turn it around, and Total Dallas brought up, McCaffrey, and by the way, I forgot to mention where you can get tickets for the barbecue, and Kesson posted it on there. It's uhletterwinners.com. It is on the Twitch. If you want to do it, you can just click right on it and get your tickets. But anyway, yeah, I think with Saquon, maybe he turns it around, but I'm not going to pay him $12 million a year to find out. Now, Houston does have a top 5 salary cap space, and they're going to think they need to spend some on defense. I disagree with a lot of the stuff. This is one of the things I kind of miss about when we were able to write our gallery columns. There's a lot of people out there saying, they don't really need wide receivers. Nico Collins is going to get it. He should get paid. Tank Dell will be back. That gives them a 1-2. They need a mid-level guy. It's like, no, if Mike Evans wants to come to Houston, I want Mike Evans on Houston. And plus, it's hard to count on. I love Tank, but he's a tiny. And, as long as you don't use him lead blocking on the goal line, he's probably fine. But you've got to use him the right way. And
you also got to remember when he tore that ACL. So this idea that he's going to be 100% ready and he's going to look like Tank Dell of 2023 on opening day, that's not necessarily the case. And the games you win in September count every bit as much in the standings as the games you win in December. So if you have the ability to get a number 1 receiver, which basically is a guy like in Mike Evans that you have to shade coverage towards, everybody else down that receiver depth chart just got better by the attention that Mike Evans takes away from them. You think Nico Collins was dominant last year? Well, he was dominant last year drawing double coverage every week. With Mike Evans there, he's not drawing double coverage. He just got that much better. Go out, get a contingency plan in the slot if Tank takes a while to heal, and you've addressed your wide receiver position for 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, I like the idea, and B. Hannon says he would draft a running back, and I agree. I'd prefer drafting a couple running backs and then hope you hit on one. I mean, you get great running backs in the second round. And Virginia mentioned Nico wasn't dominant without Tank. Yeah, there was an adjustment period there, and they lost some big plays. And I think, as somebody mentioned D-Hop, I would take D-Hop back. Virginia says draft Bowers. I think he's long gone, man. That guy's probably a top 5 pick. But yeah, I'm intrigued by the whole draft thing. And if you can't tell, somebody's being a real jerk right now. So Joe, you talk on that while I get her back on her inside leash and get her calmed down before she bites me one more
there's
time.
A lot of intrigue, as you said, Freddie, about this draft. The quarterbacks at the top of the draft, that next tier of quarterbacks, I think, is also incredibly intriguing, Fred. The J.J. McCarthys, the Bo Nixes, the Michael Penixes. That second wave of quarterbacks, I think, has a lot of intrigue because, they've had the big production in Bo Nix and in Michael Penix. McCarthy production has been, strong. He doesn't have the volume of games that either Penix or Bo Nix have under his belt, but the production's been good. But Penix and Nix, dominant production, elite production. There are questions on these guys, but there's also a large camp of player personnel people around the NFL that think that Penix, Nix, and McCarthy can have incredible can be winning NFL, maybe even elite NFL quarterbacks, and you won't have to take any of them in the top 10. J.J. McCarthy's probably going to move up to a first-round pick. I'm not sure. You may be able to either snag Nix and Penix at the very back of the first round by trading back in so that you get that fifth year.
Right.
Or if you decide to let him, those are quarterbacks you may be able to get in the second round. But what the strategy seems to be these days is if you like a quarterback with a high second round tag, instead of actually letting him get to the second round, you trade back up into the back of the first round and you draft that quarterback so that you get that extra year on the rookie deal. And I think that's where you're going to see both a Bo Nix and a Michael Penix picked at the very back of the first round. And I have a belief the general managers that pick them are going to think they got the steal of the draft because those quarterbacks both have a wealth of experience, elite production, and some top side tools and measurables. So, you can get some real value at quarterback middle and late in the first round. And these could be guys that could be franchise level quarterbacks. And it wouldn't shock me if any of the three guys I mentioned turned out to be a franchise level quarterback or close to it.
Well, and Virginia Buttonweed mentioned McCarthy will be top 5 per Lance Zierlein, which wouldn't shock me. But I also think that as we, as we get past the combine, somebody's going to fall in love with some of these guys. Some of the guys that we thought were going to go high, real high. Yeah, I like Penix a lot. I wonder how, his measurables are going to be when they get to the combine. But I mean, his decision making is really good. And, and somebody brought up a good point that, we don't really know about McCarthy because they were defense and a run game. You didn't need him to be Michael Penix and go out there and throw the ball all over the yard. And also Michael Penix had a receiver who's probably top 10, who was a go-to guy, and that's always helpful. But I like I said, the Jaden Daniels thing to me, I think once he gets to the combine, he's going to test through the roof. If they can tighten up that loopy release of his, which I think they can, then I think he will be terrific. He does make good decisions. He's athletic. And then, as far as Caleb Williams goes, I'm kind of out on Caleb Williams. I think some of the stuff that came out last year near the end of the season really makes me question his leadership abilities. Makes me think he's a little bit of a pussy, to be honest. And I don't want that guy as my quarterback. Now, Drake May I've seen a lot of, but I don't feel like I know anything about him because he looks the part. He's got all the skills. But even from the games I've watched, I just don't think I learned anything about him. So that's another one. I think he'll test through the roof because he's got that Mitch Trubisky size,
Mm-hmm. Hopefully you don't get Mitch Trubisky results in the NFL. But again, the Drake May thing is interesting because there's a guy in a system where those quarterbacks always produce. Then you bring them to the NFL and, well, not as much. So, it remains to be seen on Drake May. Again, you pointed out, you go back to Jaden Daniels and you point out the loopy release. I'll go back to my Lamar Jackson analogy. Do you remember how long Lamar Jackson's arm motion was when he came out of college?
Yeah.
Small thing like that, they can fix it. They will clean up some of the mechanics and some of the rough edges on an otherworldly athlete. You turned me on to him, and I ended up watching a lot of him, and I went back and watched some old stuff, and he's got every skill you need from a quarterback, and you can design and win with him now. We go back to Penix and we talk elite production. Elite production, good, excellent arm talent. Measurables are a question, and the injuries are a question. That's a guy who's had a couple of torn ACLs. So, again, that's what knocks him down. Bo Nix moved over to Oregon and did amazing things after he got out of that spotlight at Auburn. Guy's got a lot of him and Penix both have that experience. They got 40 odd starts in college football. That makes you ready to hit the ground running. What did Parcells say? Man, if you don't have 30 starts in college, I don't want to draft you as my quarterback. And we've seen how many times these guys with no experience come in, and it takes a while to get it together. That'll be a leg up for Penix and Nick at the back of the first round or early second.
The Total Dallas says Caleb W. gives me Bo Callahan vibes from Costner's Draft Day, one of the worst movies ever. But yeah, good call. Good call on Bo Callahan. But the other thing I would just mention, when you get to a guy like Daniels, I'm not criticizing his coaching staff for not fixing that. In college, that's the guy won the Heisman Trophy, so that's not the time to fix it.
No.
I mean, that's when you get to the pros, you worry about that. And a lot of times we see that. And the other thing I'll say about Bo Nix, my comparison for him career path-wise is Joe Burrow, because Burrow wasn't anything at Ohio State. And he really wasn't anything but the experience. And by his senior year, the light was on. And Bo Nix is not the same quarterback he was at Auburn. And I know a lot of SEC people are like, oh, Bo Nix isn't very good. It's like, you have not watched him. This is not the same guy. He has gotten better, just like Joe Burrow did. So,
yep.
So I'm not saying he's going to be Joe Burrow, but, I think that there's, that's kind of his career arc in college. So Joey B wants to know who we think, if they think the Jets could afford to put Penix behind Rodgers for 2 years. And that's not a horrible idea.
No, they just don't do it in today's NFL very much, where you're going to draft a quarterback anywhere in round one and have him sit for 2 years. But if there were any situation to do it, might not be a bad idea. He's a good guy to learn from. Whether he's interested in teaching you is something else. Aaron Rodgers has never been the mentor type. Aaron Rodgers is going to come in, go work, win games, play great. He ain't going to mentor his replacement. That's not what he does. So, Penix will learn by sitting and watching and the coaching staff helping him, but he ain't going to learn anything from Aaron Rodgers taking him, putting his arm around him and saying, here, kid, let me show you why I did this, because that's not Aaron Rodgers. He just ain't wired that way.
No, and almost nobody does that. And, I mean, if you draft a quarterback high, you're going to get him in there. And even if you're a mid-round first or something like that, you're going to wind up starting at some point early.
By week 8 of your rookie season, usually at the latest, correct?
Yeah, and the reality is when you look at where it's worked, I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith for a year. That was a perfect situation. And the Packers have now done it 3 times with Favre and then Rodgers and now Jordan Love. And, it looks like Love may be the guy for him. Flip saying C. Williams equal Jamarcus R. I'm not going to go that far. Jamarcus Russell is like one of the that's one of the all-time busts. I don't think he's going to be that. I just don't know that he's going to be an elite NFL quarterback.
But, you mentioned the sit behind, and you mentioned the Packers seem to have a patent on it. They've done it 3 times. The Chiefs did it once. It's now a few years ago. Nobody else does it anymore. It's just not done. So I would be surprised in a league based with the way the salary cap is, with the way contracts are. It is an extremely win now league. You really can't groom a quarterback for 2 years waiting for him. The window for the Jets to win is right now. That was why Aaron Rodgers was brought in. They had everything else in place in their mind. They needed the quarterback. He lasted 4 snaps. That was the end of the season. So they need to win now. 2 years from now, based on do you sit Michael Penix behind him for 2 years? I don't know what that roster will look like. They could be in salary cap hell by that time, and they could be in some type of retooling or rebuilding. So in 2024, drafting a quarterback in the first round to sit behind somebody and learn just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, and Total Dallas mentioned Steve McNair sat while still in Houston. That they used to do that all the time, but the difference now is, and especially if you're a first-round quarterback, once you start the clock on that rookie deal, you want to use those guys because, you don't want them to sit for 3 years and then they play one, and then you got to make a decision. And if the guy kicks ass, you wind up overpaying for him. And if he winds up not being very good, then you got to go to the 5th-year option. So he's got 2 years to be good. And yes, I get why teams don't do that. I mean, back in our day, Total Dallas, you remember when the Cowboys drafted Aikman? They also took Steve Walsh, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. Steve Walsh in the 4th round. I think it was a supplemental 4th-round pick, right?
Yeah, and I mean the whole thing is like one of these guys is going to hit. And, when the former Redskins, they were Redskins when they drafted him. Mama called them Redskins. I'm going to call them Redskins. When they drafted RG3 and then Kirk Cousins in the same draft. And then people are criticizing him. I think with some teams, we don't know on these quarterbacks. Nobody thought C.J. Stroud would come in and be this good. Nobody thought Bryce Young would suck that much the first year. You just don't know. And we don't know whether that's the real guy, right? I don't think that's Bryce Young. I think he'll get better. And I think C.J. Stroud's going to be a very good quarterback. I don't know how much better he can play than he did last year as a rookie.
No, he was tremendous. With the standard growth that you would expect just from more experience on the NFL level, some better weapons, they're going to keep the play caller. The sky's the limit for him. For Bryce Young, again, he did not play well, but a lot of that was on that offensive philosophy, the lack of weapons. They had no speed.
Right.
They made Adam Thielen their number one and go-to target. Adam Thielen couldn't run away from me. So a lot of Bryce Young's issues were Frank Reich is the head coach, not turning over the play calling duties to the offensive coordinator. Then he did one good game, one bad game. He took him back. Then he got fired. And they had no speed on the outside. And what little speed they had, they didn't use. So it was just a disaster from go. So I won't put a lot of it on him. If he stinks again this year, well, then you start looking at him.
Yeah. And one more topic I want to get to on quarterbacks before we wrap it up. But first, I want to talk to you about Piper's Plumbing. And 832-632-2583. Joseph and his company do a great job. My neighbor, they came up and did some work from him. He was thrilled. I've done some work for Brandon. And they're located in Nassau Bay. And they take care of everything, whatever it is. If you've got plumbing needs, water heater replacement, drain clog blockage, any of that stuff, they take care of it for you. So please give them a call. And Joseph is a good friend and listens to the show all the time. Longtime blitzer. 832-632-2583. Okay, so last one. A lot of talk about and I'm starting to buy into this. Justin Fields to the Steelers, and then the Bears take a quarterback. Your thoughts?
I think it makes perfect sense for the Bears. I think we've seen enough of Justin Fields that I'm not convinced he's your Yeah, he's the kind of quarterback that's taking you to the promised land. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite quarterback. He may be a middle of the pack towards top 10 starter at his height, and I'm not even sure he gets to top 10. I think he'd be a middle of the pack starter. So if you've got a chance to draft at the very top of the draft a quarterback, go ahead and do it. You just better hit on this one. Trade Justin Fields, get whatever draft capital you can. Makes perfect sense for the Bears. I think it's a very smart move for the Bears. For the Steelers, well, is he an upgrade over Kenny Pickett? Yeah. But again, are you getting a quarterback that can really get you to where you want to go? You want to get to the promised land. Is he a quarterback, unless absolutely everything is perfect, that's going to get you to the promised land? I see nothing that tells me yes. So if I'm the Steelers, I'm not doing that. If I'm the Bears, I'm doing it in a heartbeat because I got a chance to reboot the quarterback position while my team stinks, and I can put together this rebuild from the ground up. And if I hit it right, I get a stud quarterback. If I hit it wrong, well, I won't be there to fix it again because there'll be a new GM doing what I did 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think he would be a good fit in Pittsburgh. He would be an upgrade, and that's a pretty good team already. And I think that the way they do their offense, he'd run the ball a lot more, and I think that would, they like to possess, and so I think he'd be a good fit in Pittsburgh. Are they winning a Super Bowl with him? No, but I mean, they made the playoffs last year, and Pickett's terrible. And then, I don't know if I'm the Bears, though, and I do that and draft Caleb Williams and be like, okay, you passed on some really good players to get a guy that I don't know about. But anyway, apparently Flea is trying to get mention Hendon Hooker, and it keeps getting flagged in the chat. I guess we can't talk about hookers in the chat. Damn. But yeah, so he's another one that I like sitting a little bit, and I think, well, and he had the injury too, so he needed to, but he's also an older guy, and I think when he's ready, yeah. And then somebody asking for a hockey play tonight. I'm leaning Los Angeles Edmonton over. I got to do a little more research because, like I said, my head has sucked all day. So one more person I want to think about that is I had a really good conversation with Jerry Bowe. It was either Friday or Saturday. I don't remember which day, but I mean, he really helped me focus on some things and talk about some things. And he was really helpful with this too. So fortunately, I have some really good friends. I mean, I have some others that are out of my life right now. I am definitely, closing that circle, but I've got a few that I really, trust, who are looking out for my best interests and who are going to, help me through this the best way they can and, remind me of stuff and keep me focused. And so that's what we're going to do. And we'll see what happens. I mean, hopefully it all works out. Anyway, Joe, great show, brother. Glad you were here. We'll do this again. I just haven't made any decisions on how we're going to do the podcast moving forward besides the Monday, Thursday, Friday. I am going to add another show because I like doing this. I like having Joe on. I like having Greg on. I like Jermaine. I like rotating everybody like that. So we will, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, great stuff, man. Appreciate you.
Hey, man, anytime. You pick up the phone, you call me, I'm there. Anything you need, I got your back, brother. You try and be strong. You try and tough this through, and let's come out the other side and have a better tomorrow.
Well, I mean, if the other side is what I saw while I wasn't breathing, then fuck yeah, I want to come out on the other side. It was badass. But, that's probably because I have an alien brain now. And somebody was asking, does the alien have a name now? Barnaby. I'm calling him Barnaby. All right, guys.
I think we just came up with your next book. What you saw while you were not breathing.
Oh man, you know what? I should get a Netflix series and get a bunch of people who have had those experiences and tell their stories, and then mine would be episode 10. And
we just came up with your next project, Fred.
Yeah, there you go. So if anybody wants to fund this Netflix project, it'll be really cool when we turn on Netflix and it's #1 in the U.S. today, because people eat that shit up. That and alien stuff, and
yeah.
Yeah. So
You do
anyway,
the reenactments, the
yeah.
dramatization reenactments of what you saw. That stuff is really cool. I'm telling you, this is your next project. Now we got something to work on.
Yeah, see, you learn something every day, and then if you're me, you forget it. All right, guys, thanks so
Write it
much.
down.
Yeah, exactly. We will be back on Thursday with AJ. I was supposed to be out in at TK Bitterman's, but I'm not going to be doing the show out until at least next week. I don't even know if I'm going out. And somebody's asking, was I going to the UH thing? Hopefully by March 7th, I'll be able to do it. Just even walking a few blocks the last few days, it's like my head starts spinning and I have to slow down. But by then, I should be fine. We'll see. But anyway, you guys are great, man. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for putting up with me. And we'll do this again on Thursday. And until then, stay sportsy, Gulf Coast badasses.